If something looks like a permanent in your life or about you, it's a limitation, even if it's a strength, because anything that we see as a story, as an idea that is about us that looks permanent is limiting us in some way. The appeared permanency of that idea becomes mental junk because it's leaving us restricted and limited in the space that we've got available in our mental loft. Whereas when we challenge it and we clear out our mental loft, we clear out the limitation, even if that limitation is a strength, even if that limitation is I am the best piano player in the world. You might be, but believing that is probably stopping you from getting even better. What's up? Welcome to my channel. My name's Alex. I'm a coach, and this podcast is all about self-development and helping you to live a happier and more fulfilling life. And if you like what you hear in this episode and you learn something new, hit that like button and subscribe for more. So on this week's In Focus session, we're going to be discussing why it's so important to clear out your mental loft. Yes, your mental loft is so important, right? And the reason this is important is because we need to clear out the old in order to make way for the new. And I'll give you a little real world physical example, right? This room that I'm sat in right now is a loft room. Those of you who are watching the video, you can see it behind me. Those of you who are listening, you're going to have to trust me that it's a loft room. And this room was converted maybe 20 years ago, something like that. And it used to get used quite a lot. And then over time, it started to get used less and it started to become a room full of storage, right? So this room, up until about 9-10 months ago, used to be full of boxes, full of junk, full of old boxes of clothes, just stuff, Christmas decorations, etc. You know, clothes hangers, filing cabinets, old desks, and loads of stuff, right? Old computer. I remember at the time thinking like, it's a bit of a waste of space. Like, and as I started to work more, you know, solely online, I was like, I kind of need a space to work from that I can record podcasts, I can do my coaching calls, I can have a bit of privacy, etc. Maybe you should do something about the loft. And if I just came up here and opened the door and looked in, it was like, wow, there's a lot of crap in here. There's a lot of junk. Like, I don't know what to do about it. If I tried to like organize the room and decorate it with all of the stuff in here, it would have been nearly impossible because there was just so much stuff. Like the room was literally full of stuff. So what it took for me, my mum and a family friend of ours to decorate this room was to come up here, look in the boxes, look in the stuff that was stored up here, and one by one go through the stuff and decide whether it's needed or not, whether we wanted to keep it, sell it, or chuck it out. And as we did that, one by one, we started to empty the boxes out of the room. We started to clear the space. We started to take some of the clothes and, you know, put them into bags for charity shops or stuff to sell online or to store them elsewhere or wherever it was. We had to utilize clearing out the space before we could then create something new. And then once the space was clear and we got rid of all the junk, or you looked through all the boxes and we'd taken everything out of the loft, or we'd cleared out the desks and stuff like that, then we had the space to create something fresher, something newer, right? We looked at it, we rearranged some of the furniture, we put the desk, you know, that I'm sat at right now in the corner, we put a TV, we got a new sofa, we redecorated, repainted everything. And with the space that we had, once we cleared everything out, we could then create something new. And the reason I'm using that as an example is that the same is true in life. You know, if your mental loft is always full of stuff, beliefs, stories, junk, it's almost going to be impossible for you to create something new from that place because your space in your head is filled up with stuff, just like this loft room was. So what I found very impactful in my life is to spend time looking at what is some of the junk that is actually in my mental loft. What are some of the stories, the beliefs, the limitations that are there that are stopping me from creating something new? And I'll give you a little example of one of these. One of the big beliefs that I've had and limitations for a long time was my beliefs around money. You know, I had loads of beliefs around I can only earn X amount, or I'm not worthy to earn over X amount. Or even on the flip side, like I need to be earning, you know, X amount of money so that I can live, so that I can survive. And when me and my coach sat down one day and we looked at some of these thoughts, we challenge them, right? Is it true? You know, are you capped at a certain amount of income? Are you capped at, you know, your potential earning ceiling? You know, do you really need right now to earn money in order to survive? And when we broke it down, what I started to see was like, yes, don't get me wrong, it's nice to earn money, but worst case scenario, if I didn't earn any money in the next year for whatever reason, I couldn't earn any money, you know, for the foreseeable future for whatever reason, then I have a support network of people who would help to take care of me. I would still have a roof over my head. I would still be fed. I would still be cared for, and I'd still be provided for. So on a very fundamental level, I don't need anything, right? In terms of money, I don't particularly need it because I will be cared for even if I don't have it. Now, that's not to say that I don't then want to go and create it. But this limiting thought that I had, this belief that I had of like, I need to earn the money so that I can then do X, Y, and Z, I started to see wasn't necessarily true. Because if I couldn't earn money, I would still be provided for. I would still have food on the table. I would still have a roof over my head, etc., etc., etc. So what that helped me to understand was that if I am always going to be provided for in some way or the other, then actually I can look forward and say, okay, I don't need the money, but I would like to create the income so that I can do certain things, you know, go on holidays and live in different places and, you know, whatever I like to do with my money, buy things and, you know, treat my girlfriend and stuff like that, right? Now, the pressure that was coming with this need for the money was a lot heavier than the excitement that I had to go out and create it. But once I looked at this thought, this idea that was in my mental loft that was taking up space, this idea of need and pressure, and if I don't have money, I won't be able to eat and I won't have somewhere to live and I won't be able to survive. Once I looked at all of that and got to the root of it and saw that actually I will be provided for no matter what, it cleared out that thought. That thought just was no longer seemed convincing for me to buy into. It cleared the space mentally from my head and it allowed me to create from a newer space. And that newer space that I was creating from was, well, if I'm always going to be provided for in some way, then I can create from a freer place. I can create knowing that I don't need the money. I can create because I would like to and I would want to and I choose to, not because it's coming from a place of need or scarcity or fear. It's coming from a place of abundance or love. And that really changed the game for me in my business. Like when I saw that, like it's really funny how more opportunities and more possibilities started to open up because I was open to seeing them. I'd cleared out this mental junk and there was a fresh space in there for me to receive something new, to see opportunities, to see possibilities in ways in which I could grow my coaching business. One of those was the retreat I hosted last year. One of those is a group coaching program that I've got coming up soon for coaches. Like these things didn't look like they were on the table for me when I was coming from this place of scarcity. So it's really important to challenge the beliefs and the stories and the ideas that you think you have, because they're always going to be some kind of limitation. And I was listening to this podcast episode earlier today on the Ultimate Coach podcast, and the guy said something really interesting. Actually, I wrote it on my phone. Let me pull it up because I'll read it word for word. He said, if something looks like a permanent in your life or about you, it's a limitation, even if it's a strength. Because anything that we believe, anything that we see as a story, as an idea that is about us that looks permanent, is limiting us in some way, in some capacity. And that becomes mental junk. The permanency of that idea, or the appeared permanency of that idea, becomes mental junk because it's leaving us restricted and limited in the space that we've got available in our mental loft. Whereas when we look at that stuff and we challenge it and we clear out our mental loft, we clear out the limitation. Even if that limitation is a strength, even if that limitation is I am the best piano player in the world, you might be. But believing that is probably stopping you from getting even better because you're like, well, if I'm the best in the world and I need to try that hard, I can probably go a bit slack or whatever, right? The same goes for anything. Like if there is a something that you see as a real strength in yourself, which looks like a permanent fixture for you in your personality or the idea of who you are, that is still a limitation, because any kind of permanency in those things, stories, beliefs, ideas about ourselves, are limiting, because they're limiting you in some capacity. They're taking up space in your mental loft because they're being stored there in boxes or as these ideas. And when we clear those ideas out and we see through those ideas and we give ourselves the space mentally, we can then go on to create something far more powerful from that place, because we have the space and the capacity to mentally do it. So I'd love to know what you get from this episode. I'd love to know how you are receiving this episode. I'd love to know what you are hearing in this episode for you. And I'd invite you to even go back and listen to this episode again as if it is about you, not as if it's about me and my loft room and my story, but listen to it as if it's about you, because it's going to help you get even more out of the episode. And once you've done that, or if there's something that's clearly coming up for you right now that feels like a limitation, or a story or a belief that is mental junk or is taking up space in your mental loft, I'd love to know what it is if you're willing to share it with me. Hit me up on Instagram at @IamAlexManzi. Let me know what that limitation is, and I'd love to explore with you how you can see through that and create the mental space. I don't want anything for that. I just want your bit of your time, bit of your energy, and some questions that I might ask, and that's it. Because if you can clear that space for yourself, you'll be able to then create something powerful from that new space that you've opened up. And if you know someone who you think would really benefit from hearing this episode, then share it with them. Share them the link, the screenshot, because it's important that we continue to spread positive episodes and messages like this one. As you guys know, I started this podcast because I wanted to inspire a positive change in people, and you can be a part of that by sharing this with someone you know today. I want to thank Michele Azzu for producing and editing this episode. And I also want to thank Hobgoblin for providing the sick music that you hear. And as always, I want to thank you for spending time with me today, and I'll see you for the next episode.